Okay, so here's the answers to Human Phys, Chapter 6, portion of the exam review. So I'm going to go ahead and run through these answers really quick here. So we start with number 36, and the question is asking about the functions of the skeletal system. So obviously, if we don't have a skeleton, we can't have support, keep us upright, whatnot. We've talked about briefly about how bones constantly get remodeled, and part of that process, a large part of that process, is because we're constantly storing and removing nutrients. Bones are also a site of blood cell production. Skeletal system also is good for protecting us, and it works in conjunction with the muscular system to help us move, and that works by leverage. Muscles pull on the bones. So there are your 5 functions of the skeletal system. Number 37, what are the first 2 cervical vertebrae? So cervical vertebrae are vertebrae in the neck, cervical region of the body. And the first 2 that you're going to have there are the atlas and the axis. And then I realize my numbering is off on the review. There is no 38 or 39. It goes right to 40. What does the presence of an epiphyseal line indicate? And if you see this epiphyseal line, then you know on the bone, something used with forensics, but bone growth has ended. On the bone, this would be toward long bones. I have to excuse my drawings. That's a bone. You'd see this line about there. All right, 41 doesn't exist either. Number 42, we do have a 42. And for number 42, list and describe the 2 main divisions of the human skeleton. So um, basically, we have what's called the axial and the appendicular. So the axial is really like right down the middle of the body. So we're talking about the skull, then we're talking about the vertebrae, and we're talking about the ribs. Okay, and the appendicular skeleton would be the limbs. So arms and legs. And their point of attachment. So what they call the pelvic girdle, where the legs and point of attachment. Sorry. So pelvic girdle, where the legs attach. The shoulder girdle, the pectoral girdle, where the arms attach. All right, so 43, list and describe the major bones of the human skull. Really, description-wise, not a lot I want to say here, but one thing I think is helpful, at least if we're talking about major bones, is to talk about kind of 4 regions that they're going to show up these same regions when we talk about the nervous system and we talk about the brain. So right in the front, we're going to have the frontal bone. This is your forehead. We have kind of to the top and the sides, parietal bone. And then in the back, we have the occipital. And these regions will also refer to different lobes in the brain. We have on the sides, and again, with same here, temporal. So I think those are some major ones. I might also note it, put a note that we have zygomatic, and that's your cheekbone. And then kind of going with the next question, really, the two bones that, facial bones that actually bear teeth, which are the maxilla, which has the upper teeth, and the mandible, which is the jaw, and that has the lower teeth. And so those would also answer number 44. What bones bear teeth? All right. There is no 45 or 46. There is a number 47. So with number 47, we're talking about joints based on their movement. We can talk about joints based on their structure or joints based on their movement. So I just wanted you guys to focus on the movement aspect. This is number 47. So when we see joints, one thing you'll see is the word arthro refers to joint. We can have a synarthrosis. And this is really no movement to it. We can have an amphiarthrosis. And these types of joints really have very little movement. And then we have diarthrosis. And these are freely movable. Okay. I'm also going to note there, so this was 610. So when we talk about diarthroses, synovial joints, this was actually on your checkpoints, but I figured it'd be good to put it in here. Some different types of joints. We can have gliding joints. Gliding joints, maybe what we would see between the carpal bones of the wrists or tarsals, which are the ankle. We can have hinge joints like the elbow and knee. We can have pivot joint, and this is something we would see like with the atlas and axis in the neck. We can see ellipsoidal. Not sure if I spelled that right. Sometimes called condyloid. This might be between long bones meeting at the wrist or ankle. Okay. That might be confusing with gliding. We have saddle joints. Kind of looks like a picture a person sitting in the saddle on a horse. One example of this is at the base of the thumb. And we have ball and socket. This is going to be your shoulder, your hip. So that goes with 610 on your checkpoints. And our next question, we just have to label that skeleton. I probably should have put the picture of the skeleton on here. But I'm just going to run through the answers really quick. So number 49. And so 1 is going to be the cranium. 2 is going to be the maxilla. 3 is going to be mandible. 4 is vertebrae, or if we want to be more specific, vertebrae of the neck, which we call cervical vertebrae. Number 5 is going to be the clavicle. Number 6, upper arm, is going to be the humerus or funny bone. Number 7 in the chest is the sternum. And number 8 is going to be ribs. Number 9 is radius. It's hard to tell in the picture, but one way I think about this is if you're holding your arm out, and usually in anatomical position, you're going to have the palms facing forward or up. I think of how a thumb can move, and a thumb can move around to kind of make a circle, okay, as you move it around in a circle. And so the bone that goes to the thumb, if you think of circle, you think of the term radius, like in math, radius of a circle. And so the thumb can make a circle, so the bone that goes to the thumb would be the radius. So that makes the other bone of the forearm, antebrachial region, going down, is going to be your ulna. All right. Number 11, this is your coxal bone. Number 12 is what's called the coccyx. Number 13 is going to be your carpals, the wrist. And then 14 in the hands, metacarpals. And then to the fingers, number 15. Make sure I've got my numbering right. Yep. It's going to be phalanges. 16, major bone, the thigh bone, which is the femur. Number 17, the kneecap, is called the patella. Number 18, the smaller, less important bone, I shouldn't say less important bone, but less notable bone of the lower leg, is going to be your fibula. It's really there more for stabilizing. 19 is going to be your shin bone, and that's the tibia. And then 20 down to the ankle, we go tarsals, similar to the hand here. And then in the foot, we have metatarsals. And then to the toes, which again is phalanges. All right. This wasn't really on the exam review, but just kind of looking at some of the things we talked about. We talked about osteocytes being mature bone cells. And we also, when we talk about bone remodeling, bones getting stronger, adding mass, or removing mass, we have osteoblasts, which build bone. We have osteoclasts, which resorb, or really kind of think of it as remove bone. All right. Compound fracture was mentioned on the checkpoints. So that's when bone breaks the skin. You got a fracture in a bone and it breaks the skin. Any projection on a bone, we call a process. We were talking about free movement was being diarthroses. So with those, we think of these freely movable as synovial joints. And then other than that, really, we just talked about, we talk about form and function, anatomy and physiology, the stability of the joint compared to the amount of movement. And I mentioned it's kind of an inverse relationship. The more stable it is, probably less movement available. and vice versa. Less stable it is, there's probably more movement. Which makes sense because all of the tissue there, if you have a lot of tissue holding something in place, strong structure, it's probably going to be harder to move it around. All right, so that wraps up chapter six exam review, and that's it.